Welcome back into Star V Sundays on a Monday night. Not from Nashville either. At least Joe's in Nashville. I am in Phoenix of all places, doing some job training. But we're rocking and rolling, and we're just glad to get a podcast out to you after Vanderbilt's game. Apologies, we couldn't. Yesterday was flying all day, but we've got Joe with us, and we were hoping to get a special guest tonight, but couldn't make that work. But we'll hopefully get that rolling next week or eventually this season. But we're back. Star V Mondays for tonight, for this week at least. Hopefully we'll get back to the Sunday routine. Of course, I'm Billy Derrick, Joe Bulovas on the other side of the screen with you. We'll be talking Vanderbilt football for the next 40 minutes or so, per se, somewhere around there. Talk about the Georgia State win, 70-21 for the Commodores on Saturday night at FirstBank Stadium, a packed and energized FirstBank Stadium. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about where the team is at, obviously ranked number 18 in the country now. But like we do every show, we start with some information on Joe Bulovas, former Vanderbilt kicker. Obviously doing a great job with his business. Obviously, we're fired up to have him with us. It's been really fun. I mean, Joe, I've had a lot of people tell me, hey, what you're doing with Joe is really, really cool. Love it each week. So, hey, we got something going for us. But obviously, the reason we're here doing this is because of you and your company, Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. If there's one thing we all share, it's that our lives are all unique. We're all busy. We've all got a lot of things going on, especially during football season. At Raymond James, they believe that's worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It's about creating the life that you envision. So whether you're building a future or preparing for retirement, Joe, over here on the other side of the screen, can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that's uniquely yours. That's Life Well Planned. To learn more, give Joe a call, 615-645-6742, or log on to his website, raymondjames.com/Bulovas Wealth Management to learn more. Raymond James and Associates Incorporated, member New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. Mr. Joe Bulovas, how we doing, sir? Good evening.
Well, good evening, Billy. No, everything's good, man. I appreciate that little introduction. I would airlift you some water. It's a kind of a little long spiel you give over there, but I think you're in Phoenix. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's been like mid-90s the last 2 days. It is brutal out here.
Well, it's got to be a different kind of heat, though. It's drier, but that sun does come beating down on you a good bit.
It does. I'm gonna be peeling like crazy after this week, but
yeah, you do look a little red in the face, man. You sunbathe after work today.
Somebody told me that, Billy, you could be sunburned by the moon. So fair skinned, as they might say. But Joe, how are we feeling about this team, man? It's obviously we got to get your spiel on, and we'll get to your theme of the week. I liked last week's with Bulovas Wealth Management, but you give us a little spiel on wealth management and what you got going on, and something you want to hit on this week. But also, vibes are probably pretty high with the boys in gold.
Yeah, I mean, just starting off on the boys in black and gold. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better game from your starters down to your third strings and everybody that got playing time. I think it was a great opportunity for the guys to get a lot of the reps in that they might not get normally, and that's what these games are part of. They're about getting guys reps and getting that well-oiled machine running even better. And so I think you saw that in dramatic effect on Saturday. Now, obviously, they're going to find things to improve on, but as a fan, you can't help but be just overjoyed with the amount of effort, the attention to detail from top to bottom all across this team. They did a phenomenal job on offense. Obviously, putting up the amount of points that they did, that's hard to do against any program. I don't care if you're playing, in Little League. Like, that is extremely hard to do. They did it in a way that there was very little drop off from their ones into the twos into the threes, and whoever got to play, they all played at a really high level. And what I loved about this game more than anything was the fact that they had this game marked on the calendar. I know they did because of what happened last year. And, obviously that was a really disappointing game last year because everybody in that building knew we were the better team. And now you see the guys just put the pedal all the way to the floor, leave no doubt. That was one of the things that, when I was a specialist at Vandy, I kind of let the guys out. That my phrase was "leave no doubt," and they certainly left no doubt in this game. So really pleased with their effort. You saw guys flying around, really playing the game fast and physical, and you saw a lot of guys have success. You got guys like Drew Dickey and Blaze getting reps and having some success there, and obviously Diego handled business. Eli did a phenomenal job at tight end, and so you got to see a lot of guys get the ball. And then on defense, you got to see a lot of guys flying around, filling gaps aggressively. And so I was really impressed with the secondary play. It's never always going to be perfect, but they did a phenomenal job of keeping things in front of them. Coach Lee preaches bend but don't break. There were some times early on in the game where they gave up, maybe a few series of plays where the offense for Georgia State had success, but they came right back. They battened down the hatches and put a stop to it. And so when you have an offense that complements that so well, it's a really dangerous team to be playing against. And I think the rest of the SEC and the rest of college football is finding out that Vandy has a very complete team, and their ranking may or may not reflect that. I think they're a really big force to reckon with. And so they're going to have those tests coming up that are going to really, the margins are going to narrow. And so they have to keep that focus and that mentality in their weeks of preparation, right? It all starts from their week of prep. But this team is firing in all cylinders, and it's awesome to watch.
I mean, they made history. The last time Vandy put up 70 points in a game was a 76-0 win over Tennessee in 1918. And,
heck, man, we got drone shows at halftime now, man.
How about that? That was pretty cool.
It was really neat, man. The atmosphere, for those of you who have not been to a game yet, it's a phenomenal atmosphere. The south end zone looks beautiful. The north end zone looks phenomenal. That was done last year, but it's a tremendous fan experience too. There's such a buzz about the team in the tailgate section in Vandyville. It's awesome to see. So if you haven't gotten tickets yet, try to get some. They're selling out pretty quick. But man, it's such a great atmosphere. And I actually was sitting next to Harrison Smith. He was my punter and holder. So we were really good friends and still are. And he's actually over in med school in Memphis. So I'm just another Vandy guy doing great stuff after his playing days. And we were just talking about, shooting the breeze of how it was back when we were at Vandy and how different it is now. And, we really talked about like, hey, this is exactly what Coach Lee was preaching to us back then. And it took everybody in the building, even back then, to get to where it is now. So it's really cool, man. You get to see so many great people at these games, and the atmosphere is phenomenal, and the drone show was really impressive. It was really cool to see that, actually.
Yeah, usually, I pictured something like smaller, like a smaller set of drones, like because I've seen it in
this
pictures.
Thing was massive. It was huge.
I mean, I was like that, because you saw the V form. I was like, okay, this is going to cover that whole sideline basically.
And pictures don't really do it justice. I took some pictures on my phone, and I've got an iPhone, whatever. I mean, it's probably the equivalent of like an iPod Touch now with the latest technology. I'm way behind the times, but hey, I'm just a simple guy,
just
man.
An average Joe.
Yeah, just an average Joe. So it was kind of cool to see that, but the pictures didn't do it justice, and it was a really cool experience, man.
Yeah, that was good stuff, and those are things that don't typically happen at Vanderbilt, and obviously a lot of it is due to winning, but credit the administration for thinking it's not just that. That's kind of a small example, but that makes a difference. I mean, you win the game, you put up 70 points. You had essentially a sellout crowd. I think they announced a sellout. I think the morning of the game, or maybe the night before. And obviously the delay hurt a little bit. It kicked off 30 minutes late, which
I'll tell you what, weird. There must have been lightning over in Memphis, because it was a beautiful evening for football, and we were all kind of looking around like someone saw some lightning, ways away. And the joke I was making is like, someone saw lightning over in Memphis, so we got to postpone the game now.
Yeah, it was a tiny little cell, and it went right over. It passed by pretty quickly, but That it's things like that. Like you have a sellout crowd, you put up 70 points. Like you and Harrison were talking. Like the times have changed, but the vision hasn't changed. The vision from day one was this. This was the vision,
Right.
like you said, Joe, and you've talked about that. And Clark has never wavered. He often says another Clarkism is progress is seldom linear. Well, it certainly hasn't been linear, but now, you've seen progress, and this team's 4-0, and they've dominated everybody they've played. I mean, it's really been. I haven't seen this in my lifetime, Joe. Through 4 games, I know it's 4 games. As a Vanderbilt fan, I know there's older Vanderbilt fans, and of course, we saw what James Frank was able to do, but just the dominance, Joe. That 4th straight game, and it wasn't perfect. You mentioned Georgia State had some drives where we talk about bending and not breaking. Vanderbilt broke a couple times there. But you also saw some different things defensively that I think Steve Gregory was playing around with, but you hadn't really seen. You saw some corners be left on more islands, and you saw some different sets. And I think, I pointed out to Robbie in the booth, they had a 3 safeties back. It looked like they were toying around with a few things, but Joe, it's just the dominance that this team plays with. And we've talked about the mentality, but I don't care who it is. I mean, to dominate 4 teams in a row like that is impressive.
Yeah, and it takes everybody in the building, man. From staff to players to everybody in there. It's a top-down effort, and they're doing a phenomenal job. The coaches are doing a great job of getting these guys ready to play and putting them in a position to be successful. Right? You talked about showing a couple different formations on defense. That's got to be by design. They got to practice it in the game at some point. Because down the road they're going to need it, and they're going to have teams that are going to test them a little bit more. They're going to have better athletes, and so this game wasn't necessarily a big athletic matchup from the opponent's side. It was more of a disciplined, focused effort of it was about us. It was
Right.
truly about Vandy and how well can we operate regardless of the opponent. And you saw with every drive, every defensive series while we were out there, we had total control of what was going on throughout the entire game. And so I was really pleased with that. I know the coaches are pleased with the way that everybody from that got playing time played the way that they did because it was focused, it was fast. I liked how you didn't see too many penalties, right? Some of these games you might think, hey, you might see some more penalties because you got younger guys in there. You didn't see too much of that. That's really encouraging. So you have a very mature group approaching this in the right way. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and on that stat, we had the 70-point stat, scored 70 points in a game for the first time since 1918. They've also scored 30-plus points in each of their first 4 games of a season for the first time since 1916. So, we talk about the offense, Joe, and how many points they're putting up. But and the defense, this, I say this, and this may not be true, but this could have been the defense's worst performance. But that's not saying much considering the performances they've had. I mean, they've been shutting everybody out, and God forbid you give up a couple of touchdowns, every now and then. This defense, but you have Pavia's performance, 245 yards and a touchdown. But you go back to last year, publicly, Vanderbilt won't much of the game last year, lost heading into it, but you could tell that. I mean, there was an intention to step on their throats. And look, in today's day and age of college football, scoring 70 points, I don't think offends. I feel like that used to offend a lot of coaches, Joe. Look, if you're offended, you go stop it, right? And Coach McGee said that after the game, he was like, he didn't say that, but he was like, hey, we got physically dominated. And you could tell, Joe, that loss last year, inside that locker room has worn on them for a while. It wore on everybody. That it was a tough loss, a very tough loss to handle. But for them to bounce back from that and use that as fuel this year, and we'll see what happens next week with Utah State and then a trip to Tuscaloosa. But you knew that was on their minds. I mean, that's human
Yeah,
nature.
yeah, absolutely. You know, Georgia State's had a record of having really good athletes, and you know they might not have as a complete team as other places, but they have done a good job of getting athletes over there. And so I know that they certainly had this one circled on the calendar from Vandy's perspective, and I know the coaches did a phenomenal job of them preparing. So, you know, like I said before, they're going to be tested more and more down the road, obviously, as we get into deep SEC play. But one thing that, you know, they definitely highlighted without, you know, going and asking the coaching staff at Vandy and the players, but like the margins are so small, right? And hindsight's 2020. So like last year, you know, if things go differently when they play Georgia State, you know, that puts them in a different position going forward. You know, I think last year was there was such an emphasis to get bowl eligible, which rightfully so. That's a huge milestone. That was what we set out to do. But now the standard has changed, and so those margins become even more slim because we're talking about playoffs. That's the goal. We're talking about making national championship run. That's the goal. So the conversation has changed, but the margins to get to those goals and accomplish them are just as slim. It's just the platform and the standard that we have now for being that type of competitive team to get to where we want to be now. Those margins are still very slim. So you never take an opponent for granted. You take this game, you improve from it. As kind of strange as that is to sound, as it sounds, you know, when you beat a team and you put up 70 on them, that's hard to do in any game, in any matchup, regardless of who you're playing. But they're going to find ways to continue to improve, and that's the evolution of this program, is constantly improving. So they're going to have a good opponent next week. They're going to have a couple coaches over there that were on staff at Vandy. Coach Howell, he was a defensive coordinator when I was here, and he did a good job. And so he's going to do a good job over there. He knows how our coaching staff prepares. But, you know, I think Vandy's done a phenomenal job in preparation. That's why you see the result on Saturday so far.
Yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned Harrison Smith, your buddy Harrison, former Vanderbilt punter. Speaking of the punter, we had a question from somebody on YouTube. Any worry that the punter isn't getting enough work? We mentioned that against Virginia Tech. He didn't punt at all, and I'm not even sure. Did he punt against Georgia State? Was it maybe a couple?
Actually,
times?
no, because I was talking with Matt Hayball, another punter I played with, and we were, you know, just talking before the game and earlier this week, and then I shot him a text. He's actually on the sidelines helping out I think in a volunteer role for the specialist now, and he's
Hayball.
I took a picture of him way up in the stands and took it down. I was like, yeah, get him right, coach. And he's like, man, it was pretty easy today. You know, we didn't have any punts, so you know, it's an easy day. It's a good day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was talking about this. Look, we will see Nick Haber more than we have. You know, this second stretch of the season. I can assure you that.
And he's a really talented player, man. He's going to do a nice job for us. I anticipate him taking each week in stride, and he's done a phenomenal job when he was at Washington State. The unsung hero, you know, our long snapper's doing a nice job. You know, you haven't heard his name yet, so that's a good thing. Durham, you know, he's done a nice job, and Brock's doing a nice job. So like I said before, man, it's complementary football across the board. They're complementing each other really well. And so it's really fun to watch, man. When you have a complete team and things are firing on all cylinders, it's fun to watch. Now they're going to be tested, and they're going to have some dips in the game, and they'll probably have to pick themselves out of a lull maybe on offense. But I think this team is built for that. You know, the offense is going to find success on our defense at times. That's going to happen. It doesn't matter, you know, who you're playing. They're going to find some sort of rhythm, right? Coach Lee has talked about, like, they're going to find some rhythm on offense, but it's our job to stop it, right?
Yeah.
So next play, move on, continue to get better, and your focus has to be very intentional, because all these guys have us circled on the calendar now. They're like, heck, if we can knock off a Vanderbilt, that puts us in the conversation from an SEC perspective. It's not like it was, you know, several years ago where you know, there was a lack of respect, and our job was to go gain respect. Now they have it, And it's our Vandy's job to make sure that they change the way that the opponent thinks and just go run down their throat.
Yeah.
Essentially, they're doing a phenomenal job on offense and defense. They're going to be tested, but this is the type of team that, heck, I would want this team to go up against anybody right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. And credit to you. Like from the very beginning, I think our first one we did. Not that I sort of ignored you on it or kind of checked your facts, but
Were you
from the very
doubting
beginning.
Billy?
No, I wasn't doubting. But you credit to you and credit to a lot of people. I mean, I in talking to people before the season, not that I didn't believe it was possible for this team to make the playoff, but I just and I had said that I thought the ceiling was 8-4, and if Pavia gets hurt, 4-8 somewhere around there. But that's not what this team has been about. They have been so dominant up to this point. They have had the playoff on their mind. It hasn't been their sole focus. Their sole focus each week has been dominating their opponent, and they have done that every single week. And look, you've said it. We all know it. You're in the SEC, right? They've played one SEC team. They got to go to Tuscaloosa in a couple of weeks, but this team is up for anything. That I think that is what I will say and what I've learned. But another aspect of this, Joe, and what's funny is, we do these shows each week and we talk about, what's going on and where we think what we learned from that game and where we think this team can go. We haven't talked. I mean, I say we haven't talked a ton about Pavia, but he's just been businesslike. And Cortez on YouTube says the most surprising part is Pavia really hasn't had to do much. I mean, he hasn't had to, because a lot of games last year, like in Lexington, you could argue he kind of put the team on his back a little bit, and maybe a couple other games last year. But there is so much around him, obviously on offense. But defensive, it's the entire team. It's the entire roster. I mean, you saw James L. last year. We talked about him. He had a couple of carries as well against Georgia State. And the weapons, Joe, that was my next point. Especially after this game, you put up 70 points, you're going to have a lot of different touches. And you look at the box score, it's ridiculous. But Pavia, just look at the rushing here. Pavia, 9 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. MK Young, 2 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown. Berlowitz was the third leading rusher, 63 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Newberry's good to see him, Joe. 4 carries, 17 yards, couple of touchdowns. Cedric had a touchdown. You mentioned Dickey's touchdown. Junior Sherrill had a touchdown on a beautiful screen pass, I guess you could say. It was actually considered a rushing touchdown because it was behind the line of scrimmage. But I mean, they're offensive weapons, man. And I know we've harped on this each week. I feel like we are harping on a lot of the same things, but that's how dominant this team has been. They've well-oiled machine. That's how I'm describing this team. But Joe, we discovered even more offensive weapons against Georgia State, I feel like.
Yeah, you got to see the depth, right? You got to see, guys that are 2s and 3s go out there and have success. And they did a really nice job, man. And one thing I'll add to what you just said is when you have a lot of guys doing a really good job, like a lot of weapons across the board, and you have guys, I'll just speak on offense first, but when you have guys that are playing out of their mind and doing a really good job at their position, as a quarterback, you don't feel like you have to make every play. Right, your job becomes very simple. The game slows down. And I'm telling you, Diego is playing in a way where this game for him is very slow. Yeah. Very slow. He's seeing the field very, very well. He knows where the ball is going before the snap. He's reading things really, really well. The run pass option, the RPOs are looking really, really crisp, and you've got the defense guessing. Right. And you've got the defense off balance. They don't know really what's coming. They're trying to get a beat just on the formations and figure it out from there. That's really a bad spot as a defender to be in. But I love the fact that guys are getting a lot of touches and they're having success because it makes it easier on Diego. He doesn't have to go out and make every play. He doesn't have to make a Johnny Manziel run 2 times across the field, run forward, backwards, and launch one to make something happen. Like that's not the way this offense is built. This offense is built to spread the ball around, to run it in a variety of different ways and to get guys engaged. Like, there's a lot of shuffle passes. Like last year, there were a lot of shuffle passes to Eli. You don't see a shuffle pass too much anymore, but it's such a creative.
Mhm.
So you see all these guys getting the ball and playing at a really high level. So it takes the pressure off of any one player. So I love what I'm seeing on offense. I love seeing guys have success, especially when you talk about guys that don't get as many reps and they got more this past week, and maybe put them in a position to get more going down the road, more reps down the road. I love what I'm seeing on offense, man. And defense the same way. You see guys really just playing very disciplined football. Their eyes are in the right position. They're filling the gaps nicely. But my biggest thing is I love how they're taking away the shots, right? Teams are going to test our secondary
Mm-hmm.
because that's inevitable. No matter what
Yeah.
team you're on, they're going to test your guys in the secondary, but they're keeping everything in front of them. And so that's extremely important. I know Coach Saban harped on that. It's like, we cannot let guys get over the top of us. If we keep, even if our guy gets the ball, keep it in front of us and stop them and cut our losses. So I really love what I'm seeing in the secondary down. And obviously we're getting a good pass rush. Our linebackers filling gaps, safeties playing well, corners. It's good to see guys have success. And this was certainly a confidence game for pretty much everybody across the board.
Somebody on YouTube asks, it sounds crazy, but do you think we held back a little on Georgia State? I wouldn't say early. I think, again, they wanted to make a statement early. Yeah, definitely not early, because I think it was 3 straight touchdowns on 3 straight drives. And, Joe, I think it was 6 straight touchdowns on 6 straight drives, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they had 42 points at the half. So, first half, they weren't holding up. Or holding back.
No, but I think you've got guys playing really, really well and playing at a really high level of football.
Yeah.
So and Coach pulled guys out. The second half predominantly was not any starters. Give or take.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few guys getting extra reps here and there, but you saw a lot of different faces in there, new faces. So I wouldn't say it was by design that we put the score up. I mean, it is by design. Don't get me wrong, but the amount of success that we had was up to the players. The coaching staff wants to get everybody out of there without any injuries. Kick their ass.
They
go
just
home.
Executed.
They just executed at a high level. And like you said before, Billy, like, if you don't like it, stop it. And they could do it. They couldn't do it. And nobody has had answers for Vandy so far. And we played Virginia Tech and South Carolina, which were the 2 biggest tests, obviously, and they'll have more, like we talked about before. But I don't think they let up at all. I think the players took it upon themselves to play at a standard each and every down and to dominate the guy in front of them, and they did it really, really well. I'm proud of those guys. You got guys that you don't see for a while, like in the offensive line, defensive line. The unsung heroes that are getting playing time, getting those valuable reps, because you never know who can go down, especially in the trenches, man. All it takes is, sadly enough, one guy getting rolled up, and now your offensive line has to shuffle and find an answer for that. Or on defensive line, same thing. It's across the board at any position group. So I was encouraged to see so many guys play at a high level.
Yeah, you mentioned the unsung guys. We mentioned Jordan Matthews in Columbia. He forced a turnover in Columbia. I can't remember if it was an interception or a fumble. I think it was an interception, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, he recovered a fumble. Sorry, that's my bad. Mm-hmm. He recovered a fumble against South Carolina. He forced a fumble against Georgia State, and then Jalen Stone, transfer from Southeast Missouri State, recovered it. So those are a couple, unsung type guys. Newberry's obviously not unsung. He did a lot for this team last year, but we had talked about him, Joe. I think we got a question about him a couple of weeks ago. And I think it involved James L. Lassiter. And I thought it was a good question. Has Lassiter passed Newberry on the depth chart, or whatever that question was, and we kind of gave our piece. But I think that the overarching point and answer to that question was that, look, they've got 4 guys there that they like and they can lean on really at any time.
They've got a
Yeah.
great room, man, and everybody's contributing and doing really, really well. I think each guy complements the other. They don't all play the same way. I think MK's. I mean, he can fly, and he's done a phenomenal job catching out of the backfield. They all play the position very, very completely, right? Um, some are a little bit bigger than others, but they all play really, really well, and they're very complete players from the running back position. And so, you know, when you see guys in a whole room of like four guys that equally could make the case like, hey, I deserve to get the ball more, and nobody's they're not being
Mhm.
selfish about it. That's when you've got the right guys, man. That's Vanderbilt football. It's selfless. You got guys working hard for one another out of respect for them rather than their individual accolades. Those individual accolades will come, right? This is a talented team. Those individual accolades will come down the road, but they're playing as a team, man. And it's selfless football. It's Vanderbilt football. It's really cool to see.
In the first half, they had 236 passing yards. And, you think about this Vanderbilt team, you say, oh, they're a run first, run heavy offense. They want to slow the clock. Well, they threw it 20 times in the first half. They ran it 18 times. So you saw, Joe, and look, I know they were playing Georgia State, but I don't care who they were playing. That passing attack looked really good. And that's something that we talk about, the rushing attack of this team, right? And we talk about how deceptive they are and the different running backs they have and all the different weapons. But this passing attack, I think, has gradually gotten better each week. And the different passing trees, you're seeing different routes, you're seeing different things with this offense every week. But specifically with the passing game, Joe, whether it's Richie Hoskins continuing to make more grabs, Junior Sherrill, I thought that might have been his best performance. I know he had a historic catch last year on fourth and 2, right? But I thought he showed a couple of times the receiver he is against Georgia State. And from the beginning, from that Charleston Southern recap, we talked about how complete a receiver he is. Man, I was impressed with him on Saturday. And the passing game as a whole, Joe, I think they've gotten better each week. And I think that says a lot about this team and how the offense has grown and how they've developed because of the weapons outside, but they can do different things, right?
Yeah, man. I was really impressed with the offensive line, man. It starts up front of setting a tone, and they manhandle those guys. They had their way with them, from a running perspective to passing sets. They played a very solid game. That when you have guys on the line playing that way, it opens up all your weapons. But you have to have time to throw the ball, and the offensive line is doing a good job of picking up late blitzes. Running backs are being selfless and taking on guys coming off the edge and filling gaps. It takes everybody, man, and they're doing a phenomenal job. So it starts up front. So credit to the offensive line doing a phenomenal job of giving their weapons a chance. But Junior, I was about to touch on that too, because he was a guy that stuck out to me of being like, hey, get the ball in his hand. And I said a little bit about this on the podcast a week or two ago of like, he's the type of guy, you get the ball in his hands and you let him make some magic happen. And you saw that a little bit this past week, what he's capable of. And they might not have had a complete receiver room like this in a long time. You've got a lot of guys playing selfless, and then when guys are getting the ball, they're making things happen, and then guys who are not getting the ball, they're going out and blocking. It's selfless football, and it's and everybody in the building sees that, but the fans might not see it as much. But it goes a long way with the guys in the building to see selfless play like that. I mean, I know, we talked about Diego, throwing a block, for his guys, and heck, he's a quarterback. I'm sure some of the coaches are like, golly, please don't get hurt. But, it's a competitive nature. It's a selfless attitude that they have. And it's encouraging to see guys play that way. Right. So, it starts with the O-line, giving guys opportunities, but guys made the most of their situation when the ball came their way. And that's going to go a long way down the stretch because it's going to take everybody. It's going to take everybody against LSU. It's going to take everybody against Texas. You name it. Vandy's got to play a complete game, but they're playing Vanderbilt football and playing it at the highest level maybe ever. So like I said before, don't bet against these guys, man. When you got guys playing the way that they do over in West End, man, you're going to lose some money if you bet against them.
Man, fire me up, Joe. I like it. But you're right. They are playing Vanderbilt football. This is what Clark Lee's Vanderbilt football looks like the last 4 weeks.
They're fighting for every blade of grass.
They are fighting for every blade of grass.
They really are.
They're bending, but they're not breaking. They're playing. They're getting it done on all three phases. And I want to hit on special teams. I know Nick didn't punt. Brock didn't attempt to kick. But the other aspect of special teams, obviously the return men, we've seen what Martell Height can do. Trey Richardson had a nice kickoff return, I think 46 yards to set Vanderbilt up well. But you also saw Miles Capers. He didn't block that. That was Corday Sidner that blocked the point after, and then Capers scoops it up. He did well to just get out of that little scrum there initially and almost scored for 2 points there, but that might have been the play of the game. But it was, they didn't get points off of it, but I thought that was entertaining. And then
it goes back to effort, man. Like these guys have a tremendous amount of care to this game. Like these snaps mean so much to these guys. You never see a guy take a play off, and I think that's what's different about Vanderbilt football nowadays is guys are flying around regardless of like you just said, it's an extra point. Some guys would take that play off if you're on the defensive line or, just going to push. Oh yeah. And kind of get through it after, a long drive or whatever, but they don't do that. They play hard, they play fast, and they play with an intensity that's unmatched right now. I mean, I think that's why they're winning these games in such a fashion is because they never let off the gas. They take no prisoners, no prisoners. So I used to say that one too sometimes just to get make sure the guys were awake. When we run out there as a specialist unit, which I don't know how they felt about that, but I knew it got them awake.
I love that picture of Joe Bulovas. It took no prisoners to the special teams group. I love that. But Joe, this team, you mentioned I was hitting on the special teams there. Jamison Curtis also had the block punt there late, and again another unsung hero for this team. But we got to hit on a negative. And look, what's the phrase? Sorry, I'm brain dead right now. By the way.
I know your pride. We all kind of are.
We're splitting hairs. That's what I was going to say. We're splitting hairs here, but I did think the defense had some tackling issues. And look, they did give up a season high 21 points. I thought the first half they missed a good bit of tackles and gave up State took a 3-0 lead to begin the game. And
like I said, they had they found some success and some rhythm.
Yeah, but look, the thing about it is this team has been able to flip that switch. We saw it at halftime in Blacksburg. We saw it after they settled in against South Carolina. I guess the one thing I'll say, Joe, is I don't know how many of those slow starts per se on defense you can afford when you are playing in Tuscaloosa or you're playing LSU at home or you're playing in Knoxville. So that's what I would say there. I'm not sure if you're with me on that, but
I totally agree with you because when you play a more quality opponent and those 3 points at the beginning turn into 7, and those broken tackles that they had on third down, but you stopped them just short, a better team might have converted on that, and that extends a drive. And, on defense, you want to get off the field. Get off the field as fast as possible. Get it back to your offense to control the game. You never want to be out of control of the game. You never want to let the opponent dictate the terms. Another Coach Lee quote there. We dictate the terms. But it's so fitting. Vanderbilt is dictating the terms, but they're going to have to improve. Obviously, like tackling, you can't. Yeah. This stuff can't happen down the road because it's going to bite them. It's like, I gave the example a while back of like the running back that keeps, fumbling in practice, but it hasn't happened in the game. When it happens in the game, the coach has been harping on you for the past few weeks. You only have yourself to blame for that. So, and I know this defense is going to correct that. They're going to get in a better position when they see certain looks and certain route concepts and blocking schemes. So I don't worry about it too much, but I know they're going to nitpick and get on guys for that and say, hey, we got to be better, because you know what? When we go down to Tuscaloosa or we go over to Austin, that team's capable of making it more drastic than what Georgia State just did.
Right.
Right.
And he said, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And Coach said that after the win against Virginia Tech, in our league, we are not going to be able to afford, a start like that down the road. And look,
No,
like I said
before, the margins are so small, man. From the best team in the SEC at the end of the year to the bottom pack, the margins are so slim, because anybody can beat anybody
this year.
on any day. Yes, this is about as talented of an SEC conference as I've ever seen. You have so many teams that are playing at a really, really high level, and there's like zero drop off. Everybody has the ability to beat anybody else on any given Saturday. So Coach is exactly right. Those margins are slim no matter who they play. So these non-conference games have to be very clean. And I think, obviously it was on the whole, but, they're going to continue to improve and make that a point going forward, because I know Coach Lee talked extensively of like how slim our margins are. But when we play complete, it doesn't even matter, because we have everything that we need to win right here in our locker room.
John on YouTube says, I feel like we're going to sleepwalk through Utah State. That's no way to go through life, John. Come on.
Gosh, I hope not. I know there's some coaches over there that definitely have our number and would love to see us, they would love to see us falter. So
yeah,
I sure hope not. And I don't see any the coaches or players allowing that to happen.
No,
I just saw a comment here of like the trap game.
Yeah. I mean, look,
that's exactly what, Georgia State could have been a trap game. We just came off a South Carolina game, and you saw how they responded to that. So that's my response to the trap game questions, the letting the foot off the gas a little bit. I don't see that happening. I see guys, I think it's almost like a mad dash to get up as big as possible for this team. That's how they're wired on offense. Like, that's their mindset. That's like, take the ball down, score, run the same play every single time if we have to, and they can't stop it. So I'm not too worried.
This offense that's a good word, unstoppable. I mean, that's what they are right now. And
they adapt. They adapt.
Yes,
they always
can do they can do anything. I mean, they can do anything they want on offense. Just watch them. I mean, they can drop out 5 wide, empty, let Diego pick you apart, hit Richie Hoskins. He can hit Eli on a crosser. What they've done a lot of, Joe, I don't think I'm giving away secrets here. They are releasing the tight end when they'll send the entire offense one way, roll Pavia, for example, either direction, and they will hide the tight end, whether it's Spence or Stowers, and leak them out. And look, that's not, it's not a deep-seated secret or anything, but right. and teams try to do that, but a lot of times, you have to be deceptive when you do that, and that's some of the things they're doing as well.
Heck, Billy, I hope they're not watching our podcast, because gosh, Utah State's going to have some success on defense. You just gave away our rhyme or reason for how we're successful.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tim.
No, they're watching film from when Jerry Kill was at TCU and everywhere he has been, and every formation, every play that we've run here at Vandy. But Jerry Kill and Tim Beck have done a phenomenal job of keeping the defense guessing. And even if the defense has some success of slowing the offense down, they find a way to counterpunch, and that's all it is. I don't really like the analogy of like a football game is like a chess game, but in certain respects there's some similarities there. And Coach Beck and Jerry Kill have done a phenomenal job of winning those chess matches. But it always comes from adapting, and it's I think what Diego does so well is he changes the plays at the line. He has the ability to get into a different play that works better, and that's the sign of a mature quarterback, right? I loved watching Drew Brees. Being a New Orleans guy, I loved watching Drew Brees for the way he played the game. He's a small guy. He had phenomenal touch on his passes, and he was a great leader and conducted the offense so well. And Diego, I'm not saying he's Drew Brees, but he has a lot of qualities like him. He plays the game differently, and that's what I mean by the different playing styles.
Mm-hmm.
But his passes have been accurate, like Drew Brees. Like, it's really cool to watch this year.
It's wild.
But he has total command of the offense. He's getting the offense into a better play at the line. I can't tell you how many times I saw that in the past few weeks of he checks into a different play because of a shift, or they come out on defense and something that's not what the first play call in the huddle is advantageous to. So it takes a special guy and a very mature quarterback back there, and he has so much. He has such a long playing record in college, and he's very so he has so much experience with playing the position again under back and kill.
There's nothing he hasn't seen.
He's a polished quarterback, and if you look around the rest of the SEC, you don't have too many guys that have. You don't have too many guys that have that body of work and that experience, and that's a game changer. Back in the day, quarterbacks would stay, 3 years before they would start, or 2, or maybe even 4, and start. Maybe they play their redshirt senior year. Mac Jones was one of those guys that saw very, very little action, and then by his 4th year, man, he was rocking and rolling because he was so experienced and he had so much knowledge, from all this, practices and film sessions.
Yeah.
So he was clicking on all cylinders when he got the opportunity. And Diego's the same way, but he's been in the action. So I think that's a game changer for us.
Yeah, and he's a quarterback you want in a spot like this in a quote-unquote trap game against Utah State. You say, Elliott says trap game there, but according to FanDuel, shout out FanDuel, head on over to FanDuel if you want to hop on the Commodores this weekend. It's an early kick, 11:45 a.m. Central Time on SEC Network this Saturday. Commodores minus 22.5. over Utah State. He can get Vanderbilt on the money line at minus 2,100, over under 59.5. I think there could be a lot of points here, Joe. Both offenses are really good. They're dynamic. Utah State has a good offense, and Vanderbilt's defense is going to have to come ready to play. That's another sort of deceptive type offense. And I haven't watched a ton of Utah State, Joe, and we'll get more into this matchup. But something interesting on the betting lines here. We talked before the season about some of the look ahead lines of you can get Vanderbilt over 7 wins at these certain odds. Well, those odds have shifted. Vanderbilt 10 plus regular season wins you can get at plus 700. That has shifted a little bit, and you can get them at plus 7 regular season wins at minus 320. So Vegas is starting to turn their heads a little bit on the Commodores. Everybody around the country,
give us like minus 2.5 this week. We were running like 2 straight games of, we were up or down, projected within like 2.5 points. So just a little running joke there, because it was like 2 weeks in a row. Virginia Tech and South Carolina was like 2.5. I was like, why don't we just make every game 2.5? We'll blow them away.
Well, I think Vandy's undefeated. They're obviously 4-0, but they're undefeated on the spread too. Like if you bet Vandy, either of these 4 weeks, you won. So similar to last year.
Like I said, don't bet against them, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could be making some big time money over at FanDuel if you guys want to head over there. But to wrap up, Joe, I apologize. I got to probably head out soon. I know you have to as well. But let's look at where this team is right now. 4-0. You've got Utah State coming in this Saturday. Again, not going to be easy, but it hasn't. I mean, it's not like what they've done has been none of this has been easy. It's looked easy, but like going to Blacksburg wasn't easy. Going to Columbia last couple of weeks ago wasn't easy. But how does this team this week approach it ahead of a huge game in Tuscaloosa, where we know it? College game day is coming to Nashville if Vandy wins the next 2 games. I mean, I don't know where else they would go. Vandy's 18th right now. If they win this week, they could be bumped up. But they win in Tuscaloosa, they're going to be a top 10 team, Joe. So, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, and you're probably scratching your head over there. But, like, How do you feel about where they're at? And what do you want to see this week? But more importantly, what do you want to see against Utah State before a monumental showdown in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, man. I mean, from a coach's perspective, you kind of want to see your guys have success doing simple better. Running their staple plays on offense to perfection, and limiting the mental errors. Like, at this point in the season, when you get into SEC play, mental errors will beat you almost as much as any sort of
Yeah.
like penalty issues will. So getting getting that taken care of. So any mental errors, getting guys more accustomed to what we expect to run down the road, right? So, but I expect nothing really to change from a play call perspective too much, other than getting better at our basics. That's our basic formations on defense. Adjusting to shifts. That's going to be very important because you're going to see a lot of different fronts and a lot of motions and different formations down the road. Utah State, I believe, is going to probably show a lot of different formations. So they got to be prepared for that, right? Utah State's going to come in here and try and take a ton of shots, and they're going to try and expose our defense and basically just stop our offense in some form or fashion. They're coming in here to make a splash, and it's up to Vandy to change the way they think, to assert dominance, and kick the guy's ass in front of them. Essentially, that's what it comes down to. That's what football is. And I expect Vandy to do just that. So I don't expect anything to change from an approach perspective, because the opponent should be faceless. I know Coach Lee talks about that a good bit.
Nameless and faceless.
That's exactly right. And so that's why I think this team is really dangerous, because they respect everybody. They prepare for everybody the same way. And that was, one of the biggest things that I took away from my time with Coach Saban. It was like, no matter who the heck we were playing, it was prepared for the exact same way, regardless of the situation, whether it was an SEC championship game or we're playing the Citadel. Everything from a preparation standpoint is the same intensity, and Vandy does the exact same thing. Coach Lee does a phenomenal job and his staff of preparing these guys to be successful. So I expect these guys to come out with their hair on fire, executing at a high level, and being very, very crisp and sharp, because they know this is their last opportunity to get experience, get comfortable with maybe some formations and plays that they haven't run in a while, to make sure that they feel comfortable going into this long SEC stretch. And that's going to be the test of Vandy's season is down the road, right? We want to be where our feet are, so handle this game, but we do know what's ahead, and we have to be prepared for that. So it's all about getting everything ironed out now, all the kinks ironed out, so that we are running even better. We're running, going up from a Ferrari to a Bugatti, or I don't even know, those high end cars, but just taking the next level to where we have everything rocking and rolling going into the meat of our SEC play.
Keep your foot on the gas. That's what,
right.
That's sort of where they're at right now. You're through a third of the season. You can't stop now, right? And look, there's a lot of football left, and I think that's the encouraging thing. Like, Vandy fans should
I'll add too is I want guys to come out of this game, healthy. I know that's going to
absolutely. That's paramount.
That is paramount, man. We do have depth on this team, but man, I hope and pray that everybody comes out of this game healthy.
Yeah,
because it's gonna take everybody. It's gonna take all of our heavy hitters. It's gonna take all of our guys that may not have even seen action yet, and they may end up being a starter by the end of the season. So it's gonna take everybody. So I hope everybody comes out of this game happy and healthy and ready to go on a tear.
Well, yeah, and that means you'll need a quick start again, like you've had in some offensively, especially in some of these games. Utah State 3-1 so far. They're averaging 37 points per game on offense. Nothing to scoff at. They haven't beaten anybody really of note. They beat UTEP in the season opener. They put up 49 points against Air Force. They crushed McNeese last week. They did lose to A&M earlier. I think they put up 22 points against A&M. The quarterback Bryson Barnes is good. He can throw it around. So again, and they're led by Bronco Mendenhall. And by the way, that's going to be fun and I'm going to try to hit on that throughout this week. And I'm sure Clark will be asked about it, but he's very close with Bronco. going back to their days together. Obviously, Bronco was at Virginia, a couple other stops, but him and Clark very close. Obviously we know about Nick Howell as well. But look, new challenge. We'll see. But Joe, this is fun, man. This is really a blast. Somebody asked me earlier, what's it like covering a team that's winning, Billy? We've had a lot of dark times and a lot of not so fun pods. Yeah, things do seem fun now. They're very fun. Last year was fun, but Joe, it's always fun having you on. I do want to leave it to you again to kind of hit out a theme with you guys over at Bulovas Wealth Management. I know, we're getting into the holiday season a little bit, getting closer. Anything in particular you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, just really one thing that's really kind of taken the investment industry by storm the past decade or so, and that's your private placements, your private offerings. So the private markets, your alternatives, those are extremely popular. But the problem is that there's some barriers to entry. Now at Raymond James, we have only the very best of the private markets available. Now, if you're kind of one of those do-it-yourselfers, that's something you're not going to have availability to, and we do. And everything on our platform is battle tested, proven. So I would love to discuss with anybody about how that might complement your portfolio, because they're a great diversifier, and they are one of the things in a portfolio that could really add a lot of value. So if you're interested of exploring that more, I'm happy to walk you through it, how they operate, the different types of the private markets and private sectors that are out there for investment purposes. So happy to have a discussion with anybody on that, because I know it's kind of a term that it's not necessarily as available and talked about, but the private markets are certainly a good way to diversify your portfolio, and they add a lot of value. And so we have that available to us here at Raymond James, and so it's been a great experience for our clients here.
You talk about adding value. That's what Joe does. Again, log on to their website, raymondjames.com/Bulovas Wealth Management, and go check it out. A lot of great stuff. And Joe, I can't thank you enough, man. This is a blast to be able to do with you. Apologies we couldn't be able to hop on yesterday and get this out there, but man,
yeah,
this
Billy,
is
you're
fun.
undercutting the foundation, man. Getting job training and stuff. Imagine that.
That
No,
was a
for
good
those of
point.
you guys that don't know, Billy took a phenomenal job, and now he's gonna be doing some training over there. So where are you at, Billy? You're in Phoenix, is that right?
I'm in Phoenix. Yeah, I think I'm staying like 20 minutes outside Phoenix. And what's so funny is I've never been. This is the furthest west I've ever been. The furthest west I had been before this was like Kansas, like southeast Kansas. And what's so funny is, being a sports geek that I am, I was looking. I was like, because we fly back Friday. It's like, I wonder if the Cardinals are in town Thursday night, for a home game. I checked my phone, and lo and behold, they're playing the Seahawks Thursday night, so we might go over there and check them out. But
That's just your
but
luck, man. You're a pretty lucky
I'm like,
guy.
what
You
are
kind
the
of
odds?
wander into certain things. I'm like, that sounds pretty on par
Well,
for Billy.
yeah, I mean, I did sort of walk into this, but no, Joe, obviously, like he said, give him a call. Joe, I'll be giving you a call soon too. We gotta chop it up on not just Vanderbilt football down the road too, but looking forward to obviously this week, Utah State. Joe, are you gonna be in town?
Oh yeah. There's only I think I'll be here at every home game. Yeah.
Okay, and okay, cool. And then did you say you were gonna try to go to Austin?
Yeah, thinking about going down to Austin. That's going to be a pretty good trip. Don't have
Pretty
any
decent
set in
sized
stone.
trip.
Yeah, I don't have any set in stone plans for that yet. They're still up in the air, but
Yeah.
ideally, I would love to go to that game. Man, it was going to be a phenomenal atmosphere. I was lucky enough to go to LSU last year. I was actually home
Mm.
for Thanksgiving that week, and so my family and I we went to that game, and it was a cool atmosphere. Like obviously, I'm a Louisiana guy, so the last time I was sitting in those stands was when I was a high school kid on a recruiting
Oh
trip.
wow.
Obviously, I played in that stadium, so it was cool. But I went on a recruiting trip to Texas way back when. So, it's kind of cool to see those moments full circle, because hell, Charlie Strong was the coach at the time, and
Yeah.
at Texas, and Charlie was actually on staff at Alabama when I was there for a year or two.
Oh yeah.
Awesome guy, but trying to get down to Austin. Don't have any set in stone plan. Are you going to Austin?
I was. It was a pipe dream. I'll say that. I don't think I'm
Yeah,
going to be out there. I do plan on going to Tuscaloosa, and I plan on going to Knoxville. So looking
I
forward to
don't know
those
if I can.
trips.
I don't know if I can shake Knoxville, man. Heard they're not too kind over there.
Well, yeah, especially this year. I mean, you could be playing for a playoff, so
Yeah,
tensions will be high. But we got to wrap this up. We got to get out of here. But again, thank
yeah,
you
I
for
know we
everybody
do.
hopping in on short notice.
Yeah,
Had to make
thank you
some
guys
adjustments.
because y'all make it really fun too, man. It's a joy for Billy and I. We enjoy doing the heck out of this. So, please keep those questions coming, and we appreciate all the feedback, man. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. That's Joe Bulovas. I'm Billy Derrick for another episode of Star V Sundays on a Monday night for you guys here on Vandy 24/7. We will see you next week.
Anchor down.